Good morning. Welcome to WorkScope Wednesday. Thank you for joining us today. It is October 14th, 2020. Let's begin by reviewing the agenda. We will begin with procurement changes in calendar, which will include the technology deadline and proof of services rendered, position management, which will include position accuracy, signed job descriptions, and time and effort. Our third segment, documentation and audits. Why? Title I crate. Our fourth segment will be work scope monitoring, and our final section will be TEA validations.
Um, so procurement always has changes, and unfortunately, some of the changes we don't learn until they start rejecting requisitions. But to avoid any possible delay in getting a procurement approval, please acquire two additional quotes anytime it's over $10,000. Um,
Okay.
hello.
Also, they're already in the budget.
Okay. Miss Acevedo, can you please mute yourself?
I muted her. It's okay.
Okay. Okay. So what happens is, and unfortunately, it's an aggregate amount. So you breaking it up to $9,900 each requisition is not going to work. So anytime you have a requisition using federal funds over $10,000, you're going to have two additional quotes. Even if the vendor has an RFP, even if the vendor is an approved vendor, this is what procurement asks for. So in order for it not to be rejected and going back and forth, it's sometimes people say, well, this is a sole source vendor. Well, that's not going to work. Um, you still need to reach out to, you go to the procurement website, there's a place where it says approved vendors. You go into that code that you're going to use, make sure which vendors, reach out to them and ask them to give you a quote. More than likely, they're going to send you an email saying, hey, we don't carry that product. I can't help you. Those is what you attach. Attach those two emails from those different companies. At least they know you tried and there was no one out there who could help you. So claiming that a vendor is a sole source is not going to help you any. So you always have to have two additional quotes. Um, there is a new statement of work awarded suppliers form for delivery of services. So instead of a routing form, there's this form out there that they've now created for, which is called statement of work. And Kim has put the link there, but you can always go to procurement to their purchasing on the iNet, and they have the form there. You'll fill it out, and instead of using the routing form, you'll use this form. I did learn this week, though, I had a vendor that I have to use that's not an approved vendor. So I had to use the routing form. So it always varies from procurement. We have no control over that. They have their own regulations and their own laws. So unfortunately, at this time, this is all we know. So again, if you have any requisitions over 10,000, before you approve it, make sure your admin has attached the two additional quotes. Even if you know that vendor's the only one who carries this product or this service, you still have to reach out. Okay. I think I see, let me see. Do I see some questions or no, I got it. Okay. So I think Kim will open us back up. So if we have questions at the end, we can ask questions.
All right. On procurement, this coming, I have to remind everyone every year about this. Vendors are required to provide documentation of services before they are compensated. So please do not do any receivers at all until whatever documentation they've given you, you have gone through it and you know it looks good. Um, there are different documentations for depending on the service being provided. For things like tutoring or an after school program or a summer school program, and so it's related to students. You'll need sign-in sheets from the students, if possible, a sample of some of the work or whatever they're doing, like a schedule or a lesson plan or pictures if it's student work, such as if you're taking pictures if they're doing something like active, like so you may want to take pictures of that because they won't have any work for you to papers, anything to provide. Professional development always have an agenda with assign with the details of the presentation, sign-in sheets, even if it's virtual, if possible, and copies of the PowerPoint and training material that are provided. So that even if it's virtual, I'm gonna say that again, do as much as you can to provide proof that the work was actually or the service was actually provided. Technology deadline is November 9th, and that gives us a little less than a month. And the technology are considering these, this is not an exhaustive list. So if you feel like something is not on this list and you have a concern and you're not quite sure about it, just send me an email with a quote or whatever it is, and I'll look through it and let you know whether what's a determination on whether it is considered technology or not. So you have more time if necessary. The real reason I've sent several emails out to remind you to order technology early is because campuses have the same exact deadline, and that means when the vendor runs out or it's too much, it's going to push the ability to fulfill your orders later. So make sure that you put it in as early as possible before that November 9th, because campuses will wait until November 9th to submit it. And they may also, if you need to do budget transfers and things like that, it's very helpful to get that all out of the way. Position management. Uh, this one is an issue for several reasons, but it's very important for you to know that the position is correct, and that's due to time and effort documents that we'll have that they have to complete, whether those, and I'll go into more detail as to what those are, but we must have an accurate accounting of payroll expenses in order to accurately charge the grant. And auditors will review everything down to a dollar of a benefit charge. So please make sure all of the positions and dates of the assignment are accurate. If you request an employee detail report from your talent partner, if the supervisor does not have the ability or this permission in Oracle to run it, all job descriptions should match the employee detail. Signed job description. The descriptions of all federal funded employees and their supervisors are to sign the employee's job description every year. Even if it's a returning employee, you shouldn't have it on your schedule to always have that job description signed every single year. And the signed job description should be signed as near to the contract date as it begins after July 1st. The job description signings should take place in the context of a conversation. And I say that because during these conversations, the employee has the opportunity to ask questions or bring up any concerns they may have, and the supervisor has an opportunity to address those concerns and answer any questions. Every year, you should review your job description and make sure it has everything that you want on it, and it's the way, just to be as accurate as possible, is what they're going to do for the upcoming year. And that should be revised in the spring prior to, and it should be submitted already revised in I guess when you submit your work scope around Marchish. And that's our timeline normally, is to return your new work scopes in March. Failure to have these discussions or conversations with your employees uh, leads me to the next slide. Position management, we require time and effort. So that all federally funded employees the time for those employees must be accounted for. And that process is called time and effort. Um, and the time is accounted for in two ways, either through the semi-annual certification or the personal activity report. Um, the semi-annual certifications are 100% employees. That means you are 100% in whatever fund, whether that's Title I or Title IV. It's no matter what fund it is, you're 100%. The personal activity reports are for those who are split funded, and you're split less than your 99 and one some other way, or it could be 10. Is however you split is definitely up to you, the personnel person, but it's not that's the decision you all make. That does give a little bit more flexibility, but it's a little bit more work for the employees. We've tried to take out some of the pain by tailoring those pars, but they're pretty easy to fill out because of the way we sort of make them. Now we've tailored them a little bit to the actual employee. Uh, the failure to complete and submit these time and effort documents may result and have actually resulted in the payroll charges being charged to a 199 general operating budget. Um, in the fall, in December, around December, you will receive an email, a verification email with a list of your federally funded employees and their funds for that department prior to the actual semi-notifications being sent. And that is for you to review those and make sure those are accurate. And if they are incorrect, you should contact your talent partner. Do not contact us. That is only through HCM that you can do personnel corrections. um that yeah, just make, if you see any errors, it's sort of, it makes it difficult when you wait until after you see the actual certification. So if it's easier, it's much easier if when you get that email to review whatever it is and make sure it's correct. The personal activity reports are due the following, by the 10th of the following month. We have hundreds of employees that are split funded, and Rebecca is the only person that reviews them. So be on time, and if possible, make sure they're as accurate as possible, because it's a lot for one person to review all of those PARs every month. Becky, did you want to bring on, say something about those?
Um, I think for Central, we're pretty good. Everybody has submitted theirs. What's due now by the 10th was September's. But sometimes I do see when they send me September's and October's. I don't need October's till November because we don't take partial pars. So don't ever sign a par that's in the middle of the month. So we don't need that till the next month. But I think everything is looking pretty good. We had a little bit of confusion at the beginning, but I think we should be fine. If for any reason you ever feel like a person is supposed to be split funded, and if they're not, just reach out to me and I'll check it. And then if not, we'll see what happened.
Okay. Um, or do we have, I'm not looking at, because I'm looking at the presentation. Do we have any questions in the chat up to this point? Do you see anything, Becky?
Yes, let me see. In the chat, it, I'm sorry. Can we still use an approved vendor if they are not an awarded vendor, if they are a sole source vendor? You still have to get the quotes. That's a procurement question. They change their rules all the time. If they're the only ones who carry it and they're not an approved vendor, again, you'd have to have those two other quotes saying that no one else provides it to you.
Is that it? Let's move on to documentation and audits. Why do you have to do that? If one takes on the responsibility of managing federal funds, they are committing to expending those funds responsibly. You have to retain all proof of services. I sort of went over that already when I talked about don't pay them until you make sure you have the documentation in hand. It's going to be difficult getting the documentation after you paid them. Uh, it's sort of like if you ask someone to put a new roof on your house and you paid them all of the bill, the 100%, and you never saw them. So back again, so you know you don't have a new roof. There's nothing being done. It's going to be hard to get them to come back and do the work if you've already paid them. So make sure, that's why I say make sure you get that documentation first and then do the receivers. This year, we're very fortunate to have Title I Crate. It will hold all your documentation for any expenditures. That means payroll, personnel, contracts, that type of thing. We have annual audits by external auditors, and we have annual audit. The one that the DISD has contracted with is Weaver. for this year, and that changes randomly. And there are also random audits by the DISD internal audit on top of um, the other two. So we do have a lot of auditing that opportunities that can take place.
I don't know how to turn it on.
All right, in Title I crate, these are the upload folders. We had a boss report, and that will only happen once a year. That happens in July. And the reason that report is there in July is because I want you to make sure that you have the budget is loaded the way you want it to be loaded. So if you look at that report, and I mean, you should look at it when you actually set up your budget in boss in when that happens in like July. I mean, in June or so, May or June. But want to take one more look to make sure it's the way you wanted it, and then because that way if there's a discrepancy, which we did find one this year, you have proof that this is not the way you asked for it, and but this and versus what it actually happened. Signed job descriptions, I've been over that before. The monthly budget report, that will happen every month, that you have to run it on the 15th. And if the 15th falls on a weekend, then you can always on that following Monday, you can change the run date to the 15th. And I'm trying to get a pattern on, that's why it's always on the 15th. If you have any professional development that you send uh, any employees to, whether it's virtual or local, we need that proof of service, that they actually attended the training, and that you can upload their proof, their certificate, and into Title I crate. Supplemental pay, another opportunity for finding. If you pay supplemental pay to anyone, you need to make sure you have their addendum signed. You need to have the whatever they're getting paid for. There needs to be something to show what they're doing, and some proof that they either did it or attended. It needs to be included in this folder. Uh, I think there's a supplemental report in Oracle that you have to run, and that has to be uploaded as well. Contracted services, anything that you got a contract for, the contract itself, as well as any services or proof that they've rendered their services, should be uploaded. Uh, you WorkScope committee and monitor meetings. These are not new. I will get to that in just a minute, but they only happen twice a year, the 31st and the 28th, that I have folders for. If you have additional, you can always upload it in or request, and I can add another folder for you. Planning meetings, that will be the 31st of March, and that's for the 21-22 school year. That's for the new work scopes. Evaluation of the work scope, you're required to evaluate the effectiveness of your work scope annually, to see, did you do well? Did your program do what you wanted it to do? And technology inventory, even though the technology deadline is November 9th, the reason I gave it to January 29th is that because that gives you time to receive it and to make sure everything is in tip web, and you'll be able to run a report and have that uploaded into Title I crate. If someone is new to your office that needs to do, or you just didn't catch it the first time, we're going to have a refresher training on November 4th. That will, if you have any questions or you just want to see how to use Title I crate one time, it's pretty easy. But if you have any more questions or you feel like you just want to receive some more training, it will be available on the 4th of November. Work scope monitoring. Uh, the whole point it is to make sure your program is healthy. The goal is, it's not a new requirement. What has happened is Title I crate has made it harder to avoid it. That has always been something that you've had to do. You've always should have always been having meetings, periodic meetings with your planning team, your work scope team, to make sure you're reviewing documentation that whatever your strategies or initiative or activities are being effective? Is it doing what you want it to do? Uh, uh, Managing a federal fund, it's required that you monitor the initiative, and you'll see that throughout any federal guidance that it's a requirement. And the real point is that their feds are trying to figure out, are you spending good money on a bad idea, or is something being done to make that good idea go wrong? So there may be just timing or your meetings, or even a time of day. Let's say you're doing PD. It may be the time of the week that you're doing or the time of day. And just you find that out from doing surveys and things like that. You figure out, well, maybe I just need to tweak this or that that will make my program more effective. So you review all that information, and you have and make adjustments as necessary to your work scope. The 2 meetings is a minimum. You can definitely exceed that, but 2 is the minimum, and that's the requirement. What is to happen? I'm basically gone over this part. Make sure you measure the effectiveness of the activities of the program. During those reviews, those monitor meetings, you should look at your test data, surveys, and the results. You can look at your questions. What was the information you gained back from your surveys and questionnaires? And maybe whatever you have, the people who are funded under your work scope, do you need to tweak some of the responsibilities of what they're doing to make your program a little bit more effective? And any questions on anything in the chat about monitoring? It's fair. I mean, it's nothing very complicated, but it is something you have to do. Becky, is there anything in the chat on that one?
No, no, no.
Okay. Okay. Texas education validations. The I may ask you to do certain things, but the Texas Education Agency is going to verify that what DISD agreed to in the application is actually being done. Um, so this year they've already they're trained us on the fact that they're going to be sending out a little desk review saying, did you do certain things, yes or no, and you send it back. And then from those, whatever people say, they're going to select 4 LEAs, or local education agencies, which are school districts. They're going to select 4 school districts from each region. We are in region 10. So it's a pretty good chance, since we're the largest school district in region 10, that we're going to be selected from one of those grants. And TA has said these are the 3 grants that they're going to be validating: Title 1, 2, and 4. 3, you did dodge a bullet this year, but as far as validations, but that does not mean there will not be other audit responsibilities that may pop up. So make sure you are continuing to do your practice in Title III. Your the the department that holds it is really, really great about following guidance and making sure they have their documentation. So I'm not exactly worried about Title III. But Title I, 2, and 4, please make sure you are keeping up with your documentation. Um, these are some questions that are, this is a sample of what they will send out. And it's asking these questions. It says, did the LEA meaningfully consult with teachers, principals, and other leaders, paraprofessionals, and specialized instructional support personnel, parents, any community partners, other organizations, partners with relevant demonstrated expertise in the programs, and actually designed to meet with the purposes. And this was just an example for Title II. There'll be similar questions in each title. Um, and they're going to ask you, and that's why I have on your work scope, on your planning team, I mentioned those people. Those required individuals have to be a part of your planning team. You'll say yes and no. If you say yes, you're going to say that you agree that you're going to have these documentation. That's why we always say you can't purchase anything unless it's in the improvement plan. And then they're going to want the agendas, the meetings, the sign-in sheets, any materials that you have that you where you all consulted with each other. This is another question. Same thing. It's asking for the improvement plan. It's just going in. The first set were like the initial choices, and this one they narrowed down to the actual school district that they're going to ask for more additional support. These will get these are the questions. And remember, if any of the required documentation listed above is not available, please indicate the items that are missing and explain the reason why you are in non-compliance. And I would hate for us to have to explain why we are in non-compliance. That is it for me. If you
Yes,
have
we
any
have some
questions,
questions.
we have some questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
so one of the questions, are any requirements on committee members?
What do you mean, any requirements? I don't think I muted anyone, so whoever
Kimberly.
asked the question, you can speak up.
Kimberly, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
It's the, for the monitoring committee. I know we have the requirements at the beginning of the year when we submit the work scope. It's got to be a principal. It's got to be a those parents, that kind of thing.
And those,
But
you should have those same types of individuals included throughout the year.
and then if in lieu of a sign-in sheet, because we're not doing it face to face, what do you want in terms of documentation that people were on the committee if we're meeting virtually? Since there's no sign-in sheets.
You can send something out via email where they can sign. You can take screenshots if they are, for instance, I could take a screenshot of you here showing that you did actually participate. So just be creative on your documentation. They
Got it. Thank you.
understand everything is virtual at this point.
Yeah. Thank you, Kimberly.
You're welcome.
There was another question, says, regarding the work scope case committee meetings, if we have not had one in October, can I still upload the documents before the 31st of October?
Yes, you can. You can always upload them beforehand. If you send any questions, I'm gonna send out an FAQ. I think I'm limited to 30 minutes. So what I'm going to do is just write in your chat. We will address those questions, and I will send out an FAQ with all of the answers to
Okay, and
all your
then
questions.
they want a copy of the PowerPoint.
Yes, I'm gonna
And
make
then
sure.
Miss meeting confirmation, meeting invites, that's from Miss Marshall, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Send me an email if you have another question, or I'll review the chat and answer the questions. But I'll definitely put out an FAQ from the questions so everybody gets to see my answers to the questions in the chat. Everyone have a great day. Thank you for coming. I will have these periodically. Our next one is November 18th. Mark your calendars, and it will probably be at the same time. And I will work on Becky to get us beyond the free Zoom so that we can go a bit little longer if we have more questions. But everyone have a great day and happy Halloween for this year. And if you have any questions, just email me, and you all have a great day.